This is the BreadWinner Podcast, hosted by entrepreneur, influencer, and sales wolf, Tyler Harris, bringing you the insights from the most successful forward-thinking entrepreneurs and influencers, so that you can rise to the top and make more dough.
Now, let's get into the show.
What's up, everybody? This is Tyler Harris, and I am your host of the BreadWinner Podcast. Today, we have a special guest in the house, and this is Mr. Ruben Rojas. I'm excited to have him on and introduce you guys to him. I'll give you a quick little just overview of Ruben, but I want to give him the time to let everybody know who he is, where he's from, what he's working on. But born and raised in LA, I believe, and co-founder of Beautify Earth. Incredible artist, but also a financial planner. So we'll go into that because those two usually don't go hand in hand. But this guy's done some incredible work. I've seen this stuff for a while. The paintings in Paris, New York, LA, Florida, Mississippi, Texas, all over the place. I think in a zoo, you're painting in a zoo now. And so all kinds of stuff going on. But man, the message behind the art, I think, is what I really want to get into this podcast. And you can probably tell if you're watching this on the vlog by the painting behind him that it all has to do with love. And I think that that's probably the most important message that you can put out. So, man, Ruben, I appreciate you being on the podcast. And tell everybody who you are, where you're from, and what you're focused on right now.
Thank you, Tyler. Ruben Rojas. Born and raised Los Angeles artist, and the goal is really to inspire the world to see life through another lens, and I use the urban canvas as my medium to be able to do that. A lot of advertising, if you've seen the billboards, sometimes tell us that, you know, our boobs aren't big enough, or our tummy's not flat enough, or we need to get a big old truck for satisfying whatever ego issues we have. And I'm sitting there writing love, or you are beautiful, or be humble, or just breathe. And to realize, like, hey, if we look into that versus what we're being told, you know, we should be satisfied with exactly where we are.
I love that, man. So let's just jump right into it. So right there, what you just said, usually I've seen that people come to those conclusions, they've gotten to the level where you're at and putting out that message after having gone through a period of time where that wasn't the focus, right? Especially like the breathe and the enjoy the moment and live in the now usually comes from a period of time where you weren't living that way. So maybe talk about that. Maybe I'm wrong, but if that's the case, then maybe talk about that for a little bit.
No, you're totally right. And our life, what is it? It's a marathon, right? We like to think that it's a sprint. We're going to get to the finish line really quick. We go through ups and downs. We go through bad relationships, bad businesses, you know, drama from family, from friends and everything. It all leads us to some end game at the end of the day. And what's important is to learn from that. What's important is to look back and realize, okay, all of that played a role into who I am and what I'm doing right now. And if we ignore all those failures or all those mistakes or all those times where we're like, you know what, I need to have the freshest jeans and the biggest rims, and I need to have all the superficial stuff to fill whatever void I'm having, played a role into then realizing I don't need any of that. And here we are. So yeah, I mean, I was in real estate for 8 years.
Okay.
Made a lot of money and went bankrupt. I was a total victim, even though being a victim is your choice, to the bubble that happened out here. Then that led me into financial advising, and I built myself up from scratch and went through all of that. And as you know, there's a lot of rejection in that, and it's a very hard business. And to be able to do that for 9 years got me to another place. So through all that, there's been a lot of learning, a lot of self-development, and doesn't mean I'm anywhere near my end goal of where I'm going to be. And I still get into all my things and have all my issues. But now with some of the tools, you can snap out of it a little bit faster. If you breathe or shift or just kind of realize that, okay, I'm in my crap feeling zone.
Yeah.
How do I move out of it? And triggering that. So
It's such an important topic because I think reaching people that are in that pain right now or in that struggle right now, like that's one of my biggest missions in life is we usually only learn these things, like we said, in hindsight. And to be able to reach those that are in it right now and to be able to reach them with that message of like, hey, there's purpose for whatever struggle and whatever pain that you're going through right now. And the reality is that the blessing that's on the other side of it, you have to become a different person to receive it. And you're in that process of becoming that person right now. And it's usually difficult because when you're talking to a person that's in the middle of it, they're like, yeah, well, screw you, because they're in it, they're yeah. Like, it's not going to take the gun out of my mouth. Right. Like they're in it. But to be able to just start chipping away at that so that people understand that, hey, what I'm going through sucks right now, but it's growing me into a person that can receive all these blessings on the other side. And for me, that was my story in hindsight, in knowing that, man, I'm so grateful for all that just crap that I went through, because it made me to the person that I am today, the father, the husband, the business person. So I'm so grateful for those things. But I think it's important to reach those people when they're in it. And that's my quest right now, is to try to figure out how to relay that message to those. And I think it's interesting, you're reaching them on a much higher level because you're reaching them through art. And especially with the street art, you're reaching them in people that are just driving down the road. And they may be in the middle of it, but then they look to the left and they do see this mural that says love or breathe and these things. And you're able to just plant those seeds throughout someone's random, just throughout their day, getting those little seeds planted that start those conversations, right? I mean, I'm assuming that that's kind of the thought.
Yes. 40 to 50,000 people drive by some of these walls every single day.
Jeez.
And if I could just inspire one person to think differently, who are they affecting?
Yeah.
Maybe I'll never meet them. Maybe they share it on Instagram, and I love to comment with people and hear their stories. And I was able to do a TED Talk on that conversation that should be out at one point this year. So it's really powerful. It's really impactful knowing that that is something that's happening.
And are you hearing those stories? Have you gotten emails or gotten letters from someone that said, "Hey, I was going through this period of my life, and I saw one of your paintings, or I saw something that was on a wall in this part of town, and man, it just struck me at that exact right time, and allowed me to pivot that day, like that little pivot that kind of took me towards the right direction." Have you gotten stuff like that from people?
Yeah, and when the first time I heard a story like that, I was floored. I'm like,
I bet.
Really? Is this? One intention is the wall was ugly, let me make it pretty. The next intention is like, okay, what are the conversations we're having inside, and I'm actually able to affect that. I had a young woman got cut from her volleyball team, so she lost her scholarship to college. And she saw the Breathe mural, and she just looked up at it, did this whole post about it,
That's
and
awesome.
said, "You know what? You're right, Ruben. I just need to breathe." So that was a pretty cool moment.
That's so awesome. That's just like fuel to the fire, man. I would imagine for you. One of the big things that I saw that you're big on is releasing negativity, and it seems to me that the process of creating art in itself is just a gigantic release, I would imagine, of negativity. Is that one way that it's kind of like a form of meditation, or just this integral part of your life and living those things out?
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it, releasing negativity, because the conversations I have sometimes in designing something or just looking at the wall, not even starting it, I'm like, okay, I'm going to be on here for a little bit. Is it going to come out the way I have it envisioned?
Yeah.
Are people going to like it? Is it going to elicit the response? Like, there's so many things and so many questions that fall into that negative space, which is fear-based. And then when it's done, you're like, okay, it came out like it was supposed to. I'm happy with it. I was talking to myself anyway. Let's see what happens. So,
and I would imagine there's probably a huge difference between like that when you just said like something maybe that's commissioned for you to do or a project that you're on, and having the you said fear, but it's just having those end goals of, okay, this is what the client wants, or this is what this organization wants, or this is what they're looking for, and are they going to like it? But then you've got the other side, I imagine, which is just your personal, the art that you do on your own time. And I would think that that's way more, far more therapeutic, I guess, than the former. So what does that look like for you? What did art look like for you in general? Like at what point in your life did art become a huge, start playing a huge role for you?
Art's kind of always been in my life.
Okay.
My mom had an arts and crafts store when I was young, growing up in the mall, and I did some oil painting classes and charcoal drawing classes. I did some of those things. I'm not an artist as far as a fine artist taught.
Okay.
I've done a couple classes here and there, but in high school I would do book covers and design them, and then I'd sell them to people. Be like, oh, put my name on here, put a character. In sixth grade, I did my first mural, which was purely by accident. I submitted myself to do the class logo, and the teacher's like, okay, well, you won. Go ahead and paint a mural now. And then fast forward, I was pre-med in college. I ended up in real estate. Then I ended up in finance. And then I met my friend, Evan Meyer, who was the original founder of Beautify Earth.
Okay.
He found the movement on Beautify Lincoln, saw me doodling, and said, hey, we got to get you up on a wall. So then I painted my first mural, and here we are now, 4 years later, painting murals all over the world, and art is the staple now.
Okay.
I've been fighting it for so long. No one really said, hey, you can be an artist. That's a thing that's okay to do.
Yeah.
And if, I love history. I've done a lot of reading and studying, and artists in the past and philosophers and science, everyone was held at a different esteem than where people are being held now.
It's interesting.
So that's one thing that I've realized in this work, that artists aren't respected as much in the case of monetarily, right?
Okay.
They're like, hey, can you do this? I've got a couple dollars for you.
Yep.
Like, well, the paint alone costs X amount. Our time and creativity and all those things. So I think we're coming back to a sense where some artists are being respected more in that capacity.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is it. I'm doing it. It's art every day. I'm playing with clothes and hats and all kinds of things.
I want to talk about the hats because I did see that recently, which I love. I'll talk about that in a second. But before we get into that, talk to me a little bit about, so you still are a financial planner, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many people that I talk to that will say, man, I'm just struggling to figure out what I'm passionate about. And I just can't find what I'm passionate about. And if only I were passionate about this job that I have, and it's usually like a sales job. If I was only passionate about it, if I could only get passion behind the product and yada, yada, yada. And one of the big things I talk about is you don't necessarily have to be passionate about the career that you have, the job that you have. But by excelling and becoming extraordinary in what you do, it will enable you to do the things that you are passionate about. And I can imagine, and again, this is a huge assumption, I can imagine for you as a financial planner, not necessarily being the huge passion in your life. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. But it gave you the ability to go and do things that did scratch that itch that ultimately now is kind of that process of transforming into more of a full-time deal. Like with me, I sell life insurance, and no one's passionate about selling life insurance at all. I mean, if they are, they've just been telling themselves that so much that they've started to believe the lie. But by selling a ton of life insurance and by doing a good job, it affords me the opportunity to talk to people like you and to do all this stuff on social media, which I am passionate about. So no, I'm not passionate about what's my job title, but I'm passionate about doing incredibly well at it to enable me to do the other things that I am extremely passionate about. So maybe talk about that, what that looked like for you in that transition of the practicality of things like benefits and things like just basic needs in the beginning, and then transitioning that into this role outside of the financial planning world?
Hmm. I mean, what it really comes down to is being self-employed and being in control of my own destiny.
Yep.
If you're in sales, as a personal trainer, and then when I was doing real estate and then doing financial planning, you live and breathe by your own actions.
Yep.
Did I have passion specifically for life insurance, as you said it? No. Did I have passion specifically for telling someone to go do 10 sets of back squat? No. Did I have passion for financing a mortgage or selling you a house? No. But what I did realize, I have passion for people. So, and all those things that I was doing, it was always the people that carried me forward. I cared to put someone into a better light. It was their dream to own a home. I was going to make that dream a reality. It was their dream to look really good in the mirror and be healthy. I was there to do that. It was their dream to make sure retirement and college education was taken care of. I was there to do that. So my passion's always been around people, which has led to what I'm doing now with art, because I'm speaking to myself, but I'm also being a vessel and speaking to people. And hopefully, I can inspire them to go and do whatever it is that they want to do and follow their dreams. And if my art is a catalyst to doing that, and go forth and conquer, so to speak. But purpose is a different thing, because then what's my purpose? What's my purpose? Oh, my mentor's saying that I have to be XYZ kind of financial advisor. But is that my purpose, or is it my purpose to serve the maximum amount of people? So being in service, using this nonprofit that we have now, Beautify Earth, has allowed me to be in service for that. Then I get involved with other charities and other things, and I've realized that being in service then helps me in finding my purpose.
Got it.
And then that tied back to the passion of people. So I've been passionate for people, and then I have purpose in supporting people and finding whatever it is that I can help them find to make them better people, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. And I think, man, it seems like such an interesting dynamic for you. The disadvantage, the majority of artists that don't have a sales background, is devastating. I'm just thinking of just that dynamic of, you have creators and artists that don't have the business savvy, or can't have the sales conversations, or just any type of transactional conversation that enables them to be able to get their creation, or whatever that may be, their art, out there. And that seems like such a perfect fit for someone that has the sales background, that has the sales skills, that has also the other key element, which is the people skills, to be able to actually translate those sales into building relationships and making connections, and then to be able to take that art and now effectively get it out there, because you know how to talk to people, you know how to close deals, but you know how to connect with others. And to me, that's the interesting thing with collaborations. And that's kind of what I want to close with is, I know that's got to be a huge thing in you getting your message out there. And so I see you doing things with hats and doing different pieces of art so the way I found you was through Lewis Howes' podcast. That's the way I first became known of your name. I saw your mural there in his studio. And those type of collaborations and just getting this message out there and getting the awareness out there has to be huge. So maybe talk about that a little bit, and those collaborations with different, whether it be organizations or whether it be individuals, and how that's progressed with social media to get your name out there and ultimately get your message out there.
No, that's a good point. So having the business background is huge.
Yeah.
Some of my board members at Beautify Earth, one owns a software company. Another one's an architect. Other people have done different things here and there that had brought a lot to the table. Having that business sense and having that business savvy, or just the experience of a lot of rejection.
Yeah.
Being an artist, I believe, in my experience, and I can only speak to myself, is when you have short-sighted vision and you want the quick dollar, you're not going to be able to make the impact that you want to eventually create. You've got to look at these collaborations for the long-term appeal. What does this do down the line?
Yeah.
What does this investment in myself, in this piece of art, in the time I put here for supplies and this and that, lead to down the line?
Yeah.
Where's that going to go? So having that long-term vision, I think, is the biggest thing. The next thing is just the experience of that is, I'm not afraid to talk to a business owner or a landlord
Yep.
or a decision maker, or walk into a boardroom and present what I want to do on this huge wall where 20 people have to make the decision. And coming from the position of the mission of the nonprofit, the mission of the work, not from this is what I want to paint on the wall and be very much stuck on that also. So just having that balance.
Absolutely. And you've mentioned that word rejection a couple of times. And so it seems like that's like a hot point for you. And as I'm thinking through that, as you were talking, overcoming objection and just dealing with objection in the business world in sales is one of the biggest things that people can never get over. And so that's why they fail in like a sales career or as a financial planner. But I can't think of anything more difficult when it comes to rejection than when you have worked on a piece of art for a period of time and you've invested and you've put your soul into it, and that fear of rejection coming back from the person that ultimately receives this piece of art that you have poured into over hours and hours and hours. And that's why I think there's probably so much art that just hasn't seen the light of day because of that fear that the general public or the person that it was created for would have that sense of rejection coming from that. And so you've mentioned it a couple of different times. And so was that something that was natural to you, that fear of rejection, or was that that overcoming that fear of rejection, or was that just something that over time through the process of sales getting just beat down with no, and realizing that, hey, the world doesn't end when someone says that they don't like something and that they're not interested and that it's just move on to the next one. What did that look like for you, that transition of getting over that fear of rejection?
I mean, can we actually get over that fear, or just realizing the faster I get to the no, the sooner I get to a yes.
Exactly.
And it's more realizing the world doesn't end. The world isn't fair.
Yep.
We aren't in control of everything, but we can control how we continue to move forward. So I can control how I take that rejection, process it, move it aside, move on. So what I've learned now is try to focus on what's controllable versus to focusing on all these things that are out of our control, because those are the things that hurt us the most.
Yep.
And then realize, okay, well, we can't control the rejection. We can only say, hey, thank you, and move on and go forward, and get to that next yes. It's part of life. And also, they come back. If you've done it long enough, you realize a lot of these people come back to you, maybe in 6 months, maybe in a year, maybe 3 years, maybe in a week.
Yep.
That's the best way of doing that. But you said something else earlier. I remember sometimes when I get commission pieces, I'll paint them, and then I look at them, and I'm like, no. And I even just say no, and I'll start over.
Yeah.
So that's, having that opportunity to be able to start over also is important, and realizing I can control starting over.
That's interesting. Man, the last question I want to ask before I tell everybody where they can find you is take a piece like what you're sitting in front of right now. When you're looking at this, how do you know when you're done? That's my only question. So we got love written on here a million times, but like the last time that you put that last red LOVE and you looked at it and you went, that's it. I'm done. Like, how do you know when you're done?
First I say art's never really complete, because you can sit there and what's the next evolution?
That's such a deep answer.
What's the next evolution? But you said a key thing, that red love. I actually finish all the pieces that are in color with red. It's my final color. It's what I put on top, that the way I visually take it in, I feel like it gives it depth and it seals it. So I'll look at how it's dispersed, the density. And I mean, I look at the evolution of the work over the past 4 years, how I've written it from all capitals, from lower cases, from density, small, large, this, that, on different colors, no colors. But yeah, ultimately it's really done, maybe for the moment.
Yeah. That's so interesting that you just said you always end in red. I would love to sit here and claim that I'm just have such a keen eye to art, because I literally just looked behind you and I went, so that last red one, when you ended with the red, that's so funny that you said you always end in red. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Man, tell everybody where they can find you online.
RubenRojas.com website, Instagram at Ruben Rojas, Facebook at Ruben Rojas. Basically, everything's at Ruben Rojas. RubenRojas.
RubenRojas. Well, man, I appreciate you taking the time on a Friday to jump on here. I absolutely love what you're doing, and I just love the message behind it. And one of my goals when I started this podcast was I wanted to find people that were 100% not only operating out of a purpose, out of passion, but operating out of their gifts. And I think that's most important, is that you're able to, between all the different things that you're doing, truly operate out of what you're gifted in. And that ultimately is what's going to lead to fulfillment. So, man, I am so happy to have you on here, and I really, really appreciate your time. And with that, guys, that is the BreadWinner Podcast. I am your host, Tyler Harris, and we will see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the BreadWinner Podcast. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast and leave a rating on iTunes for a chance to be on the show. Send a screenshot of your iTunes rating to @TylerHarris page on Instagram, where he'll pick one person every single week. See you next time on the BreadWinner Podcast.